In 1961, the British government was in a panic. A Goya masterpiece, the portrait of the Duke of Wellington, had been snatched from the National Gallery. This was the first theft in the gallery's 137-year history. The police were looking for a sophisticated international art gang. They alerted Interpol. They closed the borders. In the 1962 Bond film Dr. No, the producers even put the painting in the villain's lair as a meta-joke. The world thought they were dealing with a criminal mastermind. But they weren't looking for a supervillain. They should have been looking for a 61-year-old retired bus driver from Newcastle named Kempton Bunton, a man whose only previous criminal record was refusing to pay his TV license because he thought the BBC was rubbish for the price. Kempton Bunton was a man of principles, mostly loud, stubborn ones. He was obsessed with the idea that the elderly shouldn't have to pay for a TV license. To him, the TV was a lifeline for the lonely. When he heard the government spent £140,000 to keep a painting of a duke in the country, a painting he described as a bit miserable looking, he snapped. Kempton said, "If they have that much for a bit of canvas, they have enough to let an old lady watch Coronation Street in peace." Kempton travelled to London to protest, but he wasn't alone. He had his 20-year-old son Jackie with him. While wandering the National Gallery, they noticed something incredible. The high-tech infrared sensors were turned off for the cleaners at 5 a.m. This wasn't Ocean's 11, it was more like Ocean's 1.5. While Kempton kept watch, it was actually young Jackie who did the heavy lifting. They found a ladder left by builders in the back alley. Jackie climbed up to a toilet window that had been left unlatched. He squeezed through, wandered into the gallery, and simply lifted the Duke off the wall. They didn't have a getaway driver, they had a bus pass. Kempton said, "I walked out the front door, went to the bus stop, and sat there with the Duke of Wellington under my arm." Nobody said a word. People in London really do mind their own business. He took the bus all the way back to Newcastle. For the next 4 years, the painting lived behind a false back in his bedroom wardrobe. While the police were following leads in Paris and New York, the Duke was sitting next to Kempton's spare socks. His wife, Dorothy, had no idea she was dusting a bedroom containing a stolen national treasure. Kempton started sending ransom notes. But they weren't for money. He demanded £140,000 be given to charity for TV licenses. One note read, "3 pennyworth of old Spanish firewood in exchange for £140,000 of human happiness." The police thought it was a hoax because the spelling was so bad. To prove it was real, Kempton eventually mailed them the labels from the back of the frame. Kempton said, "I am a law-abiding man, except when the law is wrong." Eventually, the guilt, and the fact that his son Jackie was at risk, led Kempton to act. In 1965, he dropped the painting off at a luggage office in Birmingham and then walked into Scotland Yard. The police literally didn't believe him. They laughed and told him to go away. It took him hours to convince them he was actually the master thief. He took the full rap to protect Jackie, and the secret of who actually climbed through that window stayed in the family for 50 years. This is where the story goes from funny to legendary. Kempton's lawyer, the brilliant Jeremy Hutchinson, used a genius legal loophole. He argued that Kempton didn't steal the painting because he never intended to keep it. He only borrowed it to make a point. Under the law at the time, if you didn't intend to permanently deprive the owner, it wasn't technically theft. The jury, mostly working-class people who also hated the TV license, absolutely loved him. They found him not guilty of stealing the painting. He was only convicted of stealing the frame, which he had accidentally lost. He served 3 months. When he got out, he was a folk hero. His case was so embarrassing for the government that they actually changed the law, passing the Theft Act of 1968 to make borrowing art from a gallery illegal. Kempton Bunton died in 1976. Decades later, the UK government actually did make TV licenses free for people over 75. He was a man who proved that sometimes, to do something right, you have to do something very, very weird.